In the previous video, we've seen how you can how when given a limit problem, we can change from one form into another form. Where this new form here is exactly the same as this, but just written differently. Okay, so now we are going to transform this into another new form. Okay, so we're going to use pretty much the same technique. So looking at this here, I want the new form to look this. I want this to look as x here. Okay, 1 plus x here. So let 1 over n equals, well, we could use delta x. We could use, I don't know, we could use h, but for some reason I like x. So let's use x. Okay. So we want to transform this bubble here into this thing here. Okay. So notice that looking at this here, as n gets bigger and bigger, this bubble here gets smaller and smaller. But because I want it in this form here, I want this bubble to get, I want this here to get smaller and smaller. So I'm going to have the limit as x tends to 0. Okay. But then look up here. Now looking at this here, as n tends to infinity, this thing needs to get bigger and bigger. So I need this thing here to be bigger and bigger. So hang on, this here is n here. So let's look back to this. Times both sides by n. Times both sides by n. So that would give us xn, and then divide both sides by x. So you see n here is 1 over x. So this here is 1 over x. Now we can see that this here is exactly the same as this. Okay, just written differently, because look, looking up here, when n gets bigger and bigger, this thing here will get smaller and smaller. Okay, and looking down here now, when x tends to 0, this thing here will get smaller and smaller. And looking up here, when n gets bigger and bigger, this thing here will get bigger and bigger. This n here will get bigger and bigger. So looking down here now, when x gets smaller and smaller, this thing here, this whole thing here will get bigger and bigger. So it makes sense. And look, so looking up here, as n increases, this thing here decreases. This thing here increases by the same amount. You see, if you were to have something like this here, if you have something hang on, if you have something like this, 1 over x squared, it no longer makes sense. This will not be the same as this, because this, as x tends to 0, yes, this thing decreases, but then this thing here, yes, it does increase. This thing here does increase, but the thing is, it increases by such a big amount. It really changes the whole dynamic of this thing here. So we cannot have 1 over x. We have to have 1. So we cannot have 1 over x squared. We have to have 1 over x. So the point that I'm trying to make is that you have to tie this thing in with this thing here, because you want the two to grow by the same rate. So looking at this here, if you increase this, then you if you increase n, then this thing decreases, this thing increases by the same rate. But then the point here is that you have to tie the two together. So hang on, you have to tie the two together. So that means you've got to tie the two together, rearrange it so that n, when you get to n here equals 1 over x. So you have to have 1 over x here. Hang on, let me start again here. Our aim here is to rewrite this in a new form. Okay, but then hang on, we want it to write this thing here as an x. So let's do it like this: 1 plus x. Okay, so now we got to tie the two together. So we're going to have 1 over n here equals x here. Okay, so we've got to tie the two together, because we want this to increase and this to decrease by the same rate. So we've got to tie the two together. So that will be n will be 1 over x. Okay, so now looking at this n here is really 1 over x here. Okay, but then we would need to make x tends to 0 here. Now this is exactly the same as this. So we pretty much have two definitions of e. This here will allow you to work out e. This here will also allow you to work out the value of e. But the difference is that, well, looking at this here, you cannot put 0 into this thing here because it will break down. This thing here will break down if you put 0 into this thing here. Okay, if you put 0 into this thing, it will break down. So don't put dead on 0. Put maybe 0. Put something really close to 0. Put it, yeah, if you put this number in here, then it will give you a good approximation to e. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that this here is one definition of e. This here is another definition of e. But the thing is, these two are pretty much the same, but just written differently. Okay?